It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Welcome to Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retired. We believe that retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. Well, I'm your host, Jared Sebesta. I'm the co-founder of Retire Repurposed alongside Ben Tejas. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether you found us on the radio, maybe you found us online, regardless, head over to iTunes, find our podcast, click subscribe, and better yet, leave us a quick positive rating and review. If you would just take a moment and do that, we would appreciate that so much. Now, this podcast is all about retirement, but it's not about money. It's about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. Few people can just flip the switch from working a career 30, 40 plus years and then shutting it off on Retirement Friday without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. If you want more for your life and your retirement, then you have come to the right place. Well, on this episode, we wrap up our series on retirement personality types. You know, there's no one-size-fits-all equation for a great life and a great retirement. Everyone has been created differently and owns a unique set of life experiences. Today, we talk about how to embrace the way God has specifically designed you. The first step in this process is having a deep understanding into your own DNA, and the next step is application. In this podcast, Ben explains the things each personality type needs to do not only to become everything they were created to be, but also have the greatest impact on others. Enjoy this episode. All right, folks, we're back and we're continuing and kind of wrapping up this series on retirement personalities. And we've got a fantastic show on tap here today. This is going to be more than just a wrap-up show. We're going to get really specific, and we're going to talk to every single personality type, the lion, the otter, the beaver, and the golden retriever. So if you are listening, there is going to be some value in store for today. Now, before we get started, just a reminder, we've got a Facebook group called Becoming Repurposed in Retirement. This is important that you join this group. This is where you're going to get all the content delivered right to your Facebook feed. You go to facebook.com and you search Becoming Repurposed in Retirement. Click join to join a growing community of people who refuse to accept the typical American dream retirement. And again, like I said, Ben Tejas joins me on the show here today, but this is where all the stuff is. We're pushing people to the Facebook page, links to take the personality test, information on specific retirement personality types. So again, you're hearing it on the show. We've got stuff on our website, but a Facebook group is a great place to connect with the content, but not only that, with other people as well. Right, Ben?
Yeah, and make that Facebook group great, guys. If you're on there, share some stories, share your struggles, be able to be in, again, community with other people going through what you're going through in retirement.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of the first things you're going to see pinned to the top of the page are links to take the 4 animal personality test. So if you haven't done that by this point, get on it. Take the test. Again, you can either do an online version. It's totally free. Just takes a second to do, or there's a downloadable worksheet. Again, totally free. Just takes a second to do. But make sure you do that, especially if you've been following this show, listening to the show. It's important that you know what specific personality type you are. Are you a lion, an otter, a beaver, or a golden retriever? Now, you've got one more little thing to do. Once you understand who you are and you've got your results, then email me. Many people have done this already. Email me at Jared, and you spell my first name, Jerrid, at retirerepurpose.com, and put in the subject line what personality type you are. Because we've said this in other shows, Ben, we're just covering a snippet of all the research that we've done with this personality, this particular personality type test, and we'll give you all the research. So we've got white papers, probably 5 to 7 pages long, with all the results, all the specifics, and we will gladly send that to your inbox totally free. Again, the way you do that, just email me, jared@retirerepurpose.com, and put in the subject line what personality type you are. We've had a lot of people email me, and I got to say, it's pretty even. There's no it's not like everybody's lions. People are kind of leaning towards otters. We're getting lots of people at all different types. And that's what I think is really interesting, Ben, about this test. It's, God is creative, and there's different types of people all over the place. And that's what makes this special.
Yeah, I think people are sharing with us more now because they're like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I struggled with this. And yes, my personality has at times conflicted with another person that I live with many times. I mean, we're possibly where we're so different. We're just so uniquely made. And it does help us understand more about how to live with others, right? And how to better live with our spouses. I think it's been a lot of fun hearing those stories.
Just one more shout out. Again, if you've missed the last several shows, go back and listen to those shows, especially if you know what particular animal type you are. And again, one more shout out. If you're not subscribed on iTunes, make sure you subscribe, because every time we pump out a podcast, which we do every single week, you're going to get a ding on your phone. So you will never miss a podcast on the radio or on your phone as well. Again, Ben, we picked the 4 animal personality tests. This is where we kind of hung our hat to base all of our research off of. But I think one of the things we want to talk about today as we kind of wrap up this series, we want to answer the question, what is the point? Yeah, it's fun to take these tests. Yeah, it's fun to see kind of some research and some scientific study as to kind of how we operate, how we think. But I think let's just spend some time and I think, dive into this idea of what is the point? What are we trying to do with people?
Yeah, remember this started, Jared, with us having that show where we were like, we are image bearers of Christ, right? We were created as image bearers. So we stepped from there into let's learn more about these specific personality profiles. Let's then tie that back to what's the biggest takeaways from each of those animal types for all the retirees listening. And now it's like, what is the point? Why would we go through the work of doing this? And really, we know because God created us in His likeness, and to be image bearers of Him, we have to serve others.
Well, we have to serve others, and that's going to be a major reoccurring theme with today's show. I think that the humans, we're complex. We're complex people. We have all these different facets of our life. We've got our spirit, our soul, our body, and it's not just one thing. There are many things that affect our life, and so we got to make sure that we're kind of just in alignment with how God created us. And lots of times what I'm seeing, more so the older I get, I'm finding it more and more interesting to kind of think about those things, dwell on those things, read books, understand who I am a little bit more. What's interesting is the more that I understand about myself, the more it creates a clear picture going forward. You start connecting the dots. You say, oh, okay, this is why I think this way. This is why I react this way. And so every time you hit a new season in life, and Ben, for me and you, it's kind of like we're kind of in the middle section of our life where we're building careers, we've got children, we've been married now a couple of decades. Every time you go through a season, you're kind of graduating to the next step, and it's important that we know, and that parallels retirement. I can see how retirement's a new season. So the more information that you have going into that is huge. And the bottom line is that you want to be functioning the way God intended you to function.
Yeah, in order to walk into fullness and to be content and have that moment where you're like, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be, is so powerful, Jared. I tell you, I've been actually going on college visits with my oldest daughter. And man, we had one here recently, went out to Liberty University and walking that campus and just afterwards talking with my daughter. We don't know where she's going to go yet, but I have to tell you, when she is starting to come into who God made her, I can just see it. I can just see her. She's so passionate about medicine. She wants to be a doctor, she thinks, and it's incredible to see when she's studying those types of classes. Like, she just is on fire for what she's learning. Right. And I know a big part of that's because, when she was first born, she spent almost 5 years of going in and out of the hospital before she had this major kidney condition. And eventually they removed a kidney. And I know during her story, part of how God wired her in her skills and talents, combined with her story of her life, she continues to find out what she's going to be. If I'm a retiree, you've got tons of examples because you're not 17. You're probably in your 50s, 60s, 70s. So you can look back on all those life experiences combined with, who God made, what personality type do I have, and really be able to walk into complete fullness.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great example. You talk about how God wired your daughter, but you also talked about a very traumatic experience when she was a child. And there's no doubt that stuff has an effect on us. Again, when you talk about your soul and your body, we kind of get those two things of your being, kind of get the leftovers of all life experiences. And we live in a highly, if you don't know this by now, we live in a highly broken world. Genesis 3 was a big deal. The fall was a big deal. And it's hard for me to kind of imagine how life was in the garden before the fall. It was perfect unity, harmony, no brokenness, no death. It's wonderful to think that that's going to be restored someday, but we're stuck here in the middle, and it's tough. It's tough taking a look at some of those, how hard those life experiences were, which we encourage retirees to reflect upon. And some of those things can kind of taint how God created us to be. I'm a highly motivated guy. I'm wired very high frequency. We've talked about that on the show. But at the end of the day, I'm an otter. Sometimes too, if I get stressed out, I almost go into hyperactivity. So is my personality bad? No, that's who God created me to be. But sometimes because of our life experiences, they can take those things and they can taint them or move them into a place where it's unhealthy. And that's another part of this too. We want again, retirees functioning at their highest level, embracing how God created them to be, embracing His design. But this understanding piece is so big, and you bring up a great example with your daughter.
Yeah, to be able to walk into God's fullness. It kind of just happened when we wrote the book. Remember, the cover page never was quite designed, and all of a sudden our publisher came back with this really kind of a neat picture of a quarter moon, half moon, and eventually becoming a full moon.
Right.
And I remember seeing it, and immediately I was like, that's it, right? We're designed to really come into fullness, into retirement. And I would argue even way before that, hopefully, you've been able to live into your fullness, but it's much easier if you're into retirement age because, hey, you've had the life experiences. Hopefully, these guys are talking my language right now. I know I'm a lion, and I didn't know exactly this was my life, the animal that I associated with, or, that you couldn't see that, or maybe you've done other personality profiles, but this just makes sense. Well, you're at a huge advantage over a younger person because you've had the life experiences and you've really seen your personality work throughout a huge life experience.
Yeah, and again, you have the life experiences. Embrace that. Think about those things. We challenge you to dive into the good stuff and the bad stuff. But again, this is just one piece of the puzzle. We certainly the 4-animal personality test isn't going to give you all the answers, but it's a little tool in your arsenal to use to identify things about yourself, your past, and then going forward into the future, into your retirement.
Yeah, and we did. This is any personality test is just one piece.
Right.
And then this is a fairly simplistic personality test, right? We did that on purpose.
Right.
We looked at the Enneagram. We looked at a few others. We love that one, but I think it gets pretty deep into like trying to make people, there's number one, just more numbers, right? There's more different things. We would have had a ton more shows. This is fairly simple, but again, if you want to learn more about how you can best live, right, and walk into fullness, it really starts with figuring out who you are.
So let's go through these 4 animal personality types. We're not going to do a review. Again, if you've missed the past couple of shows, go back, listen to those shows. We dive into each one very specifically in depth. But Ben, let's go through each one individually and just talk about how these specific people can embrace how God created them to be, and what do they need to do? What's some tactical things that they need to do for each one?
Yeah, and I think really the point is here, when people can live in accordance with how they were created, right, and combine that with a cause or a purpose that's greater than themselves, they will find fulfillment, right? So every single one of these animal types, if we can help you understand who you are, is only part. It's only the first half, and I would say a sliver of what's important. The biggest, most important thing coming out of this is how can you, as a person, how can you as a lion impact the others around you? Remember, for anybody to be fully fulfilled, you need to be others-centered. For you to have impact, obviously you have to be others-centered, because otherwise there's nobody impact. For you to leave a legacy, you have to be others-focused, because otherwise there's nobody to carry on what exactly what you've shown them. So again, each and every one of these animal types and personality profiles, we want to tie that back into the only way to become fully whole, to be fully in walking into fullness and who God created you to be, is by combining it into an others-centered activity.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. So again, let's go through these and get really specific on what they need to do. Let's start with the lion.
So me being a lion, Jared, I know that I have to lead. I have to have something where I can pull others ahead, right? I can, again, not push. I mean, I always think people are having leadership podcasts, and there's so many great ones out there. I was just think I want to be able to impact and help get more out of people. I think my job is really to create vision, but then also have people come into their fullness by leading them and seeing things in them that they may not even see.
Yeah, I see leaders as being encouragers. They're the ones that not only lead, but they help other people kind of walk into their fullness as well. The leaders that I know that are in my life are really, really good at doing that, and they're able to see things in people that they may not see for themselves. And this is not going to be a problem, by the way, in retirement, because there are going to be a lot of opportunities to come up and do this. There's organizations all over the place looking for people to lead and to be those people. This should not, I mean, retirement should be a home run for a lion, no doubt.
Yeah, and don't think like, oh man, I have to start a nonprofit, create vision, and do something all over again. Maybe that's your thing, but your thing might also be, hey, we're having our normal coffee time with the guys, and we're like, hey, what are we gonna do? Let's make a difference in our community right now. What you may have to leave, you may lead, you may have to drive the bus and say, okay, guys, what would be neat in our community if we had this? And you all think, yeah, that's kind of cool, kind of a neat idea. Guess what? If you're a lion, you need to excel in leadership and move forward and pull along those other personality types and make sure that something happens, right? With that vision. It's
interesting too that lions and leaders need to understand not everybody's built that way. So don't get frustrated when not everybody wants to lead the charge, because that's just not in their realm, so to speak.
Yeah, if we were all leaders, guys, and we were all lions, it wouldn't work very well. That's why God made people who are perfectly fine jumping into your vision, jumping into and following with you. That's how God made them. They were not designed the same way you are, so embrace that, embrace who you are, and the only way for you to walk into total fullness as a retiree, if you're a lion, is to find people around you to lead forward to make better.
That's a good point. Let's talk about the otter next.
Yeah, I think the otter, again, this is your personality type, so I'm going to let you weigh in, but if I had to say one thing about an otter, they're full of energy, and they will need to share that energy with those around them and really influence others to have, to be able to enjoy life, to be able to just, again, communicate energy with what they do.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Otters are typically emotional or emotional driven, and our outlet, so to speak, is when we get excited. Not only get excited, but also get other people excited. We're excitable people. I find myself that I'm in tune with how God created me when I'm inspiring other people or transferring that energy. And that, again, could be a home run in retirement. I could also see how retirement, if you're going to buy into the notion of now it's time to do as much nothing as possible, which is kind of how the world frames retirement, there's going to be a dilemma there.
Yeah, but your job, again, is to go, hey, lion, let's have some fun today. Let's make sure that you're leading in a fun way. Let's make sure it's enjoyable. A great part of being an otter is being able to show others, right? Here's some things that we can do that's enjoyable.
Right.
We've talked about being able to vacation. Some of us lions have a hard time with that. If I'm an otter and I'm like, hey, we're in a group of people, let's make sure everybody's having a great time here,
right,
and showing people that, hey, retirement can be a ton of fun. It can be something where it can totally blow away
right,
what you ever thought it could be if you're following, really, again, how God made you and making other people's lives better.
Yep. Otters are typically adventurous. So again, embrace that part and transfer it into retirement, and then also involve other people. That's a great point. Let's talk about the beavers, Ben.
Well, I look at a beaver, again, we're a very hardworking type person, right? And like, I'm very task orientated. That's your typical beaver. So you might say, just stay busy. No, that's only a small sliver of making sure you're fulfilled.
Right.
What you need to do is stay busy with others. Okay, so if you're, and I love old cars. In fact, right now I'm restoring an old Corvette, and I'm not doing a lot of the work myself. But if I'm a retiree and I'm restoring an old vehicle, you might think, yeah, I'm doing a frame-off restoration and getting everything just perfect. Well, that's somewhat fulfilling. I mean, there's a task there. You overcame it, and you got to do all of it, all the work and stuff yourself. How much more fulfilling for that beaver type retiree to say, no, I'm going to do this as part of a car club and have some guys with me doing it. Or better yet, I'm going to take and use this car in a local automotive class and have a local college help me do this restoration. Or even better yet, my grandson, my granddaughter is going to be involved in this with me. And it's going to be something that we can do together. So again, I'm accomplishing things, but I'm doing those making those accomplishments with others.
I think this is where the conversation of busy work comes into play. There's nothing wrong with busy work and just having some work or hobbies that get us moving. I think this is where beavers could really get into the idea of retirement, where I fill my schedule of tasks just so I can scratch the itch of staying busy, which there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it can't be all that all the time.
Yeah, it's not enough to have a perfect lawn. It just isn't.
Right.
If you have a perfect yard and a lawn and yet you've had somebody help you with it, or you're doing it in community, or there's something bigger and there's a bigger cause there, then I think it's enough.
Last one is the golden retriever. What do they need to do? What do they need to focus on in retirement?
So again, golden retrievers are this caring group of people that I've loved, and they're just great at relationships. So you might say, well, just deepen your relationships with others. That's only, again, partway there. Yeah, it's great to have deep relationships, but if you can help somebody deepen their relationship with others, so in your groups, right, it's probably not enough for even just to deepen your relationship with others in your group, but if you can take it to that next step and then say, okay, I can see that this lion over there is having a hard time with their relationships. Guess what? I'm a relational person myself. I might need a golden retriever to help bring that out of me.
Right.
So I think if a golden retriever can really walk into fullness, it's going to come through, continuing to build relationships with people, but also help others, really dive deeper into their relationships.
Again, it's interesting how God is so creative in making specific types of people. And again, this is just scratching the surface of how complex, God's creation is. But, I can see in a group of friends, in a community, you're going to want each one of these types of people and embrace that. We can all help bring the best out of everybody. And again, that's why God has, I think, one of the reasons why God has been so creative with people. To accomplish His task, He's going to need all different types of people and to do His work. And it all comes down to this idea of doing purposeful, meaningful work that's impactful. That's the whole underlying message here today.
And again, you can't have legacy without impacting others. You can't have fulfillment without impacting the people around you. So again, when people can live in accordance with how God made them, right? They know who they are, and then they combine that with a cause that's greater than themselves, true fulfillment can be possible.
Well, I sure hope you enjoyed this conversation as we wrap up our series on retirement personality types. Just one more reminder, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, Becoming Repurposed in Retirement, log on to facebook.com and join our group. Then take the 4 animal personality test. You're going to see links right at the top of the page. And lastly, once you get your results, email me at jared@retirerepurpose.com. Put in the subject line your personality type, and I'll send you all of our research so you can help your retirement become everything it was supposed to be. Until next time, I'm Jared Sebesta. Remember, don't retire, become repurposed. We'll see you then.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.